I'm here today with Greg Socher, who was one of the editors on the original Spider-Man film. I cannot believe that I'm sitting here in person with him.
I can believe it.
There was a weird series of events that led to this meeting, partially because of Ryan Spencer here, who's my cousin-in-law. He reached out to me, he's like, hey Holden, you like the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies, right? Have you met me? So I'm so excited. I got a list of questions. I've actually asked my patrons for some questions too. HiTop Films actually has some questions for you as well. There will be a probably an extended version over on Patreon. Keep that in mind. But for now, how did you get involved in editing Spider-Man?
That's a very good question. I'll try and be as brief as possible.
No, take your time.
Okay, then I'll make it as long as I can.
That sounds great.
I started working at Sony Pictures back in 1999 as an EPK editor, sorting through B-roll and sound bites of all the films that Sony created back then. I was actually a huge Spider-Man fan growing up. I had about 200 or 300 comic books. I actually sold all of them when I was 19 because I needed the money, but they would be worth a fortune now. When I got assigned Spider-Man, I was thrilled. I knew of Sam Raimi. I knew of, Evil Dead and Army of Darkness and all the films he made. The marketing department wanted to pull a clip for Comic-Con. This was way back in 2001, I think, I want to say. Sam sits me down right away and he says, you're going to be cutting the spider bite scene.
Okay, an iconic moment there. Okay, got it. Okay.
Peter Parker gets bitten by a spider. If you didn't already know. He said, I'm going to give you all the dailies and I want you to go through the dailies and recut the scene the way that you see fit. I almost said, are you sure? Isn't there another editor on this film that actually cut the scene? He says, yes, but I want your take on what it looked like. So he gave me total creative license to recut the scene. Finally, it came time to show the clip, and they brought in Laura Ziskin, Avi Arad.
Yeah, Avi Arad.
So Avi Arad was obviously pre-Kevin Feige. Everyone's standing behind me in this small room. Sam's there, hit the space bar, and everybody watched it. Then there's silence afterwards. So I look over and Sam picks up the fax machine as if to hit me over the head with it. And he's like over me like this. I didn't know Sam that well either at that point, but he's a jokester. Yeah. He puts it down real quick and he says, friend, that was great. What you did was fantastic. We love it. We're getting hit by a fax machine, first of all. He pulls me into his office afterwards. I'd like to have you work on the film until it's done. 6 months left on the film. He said, are you open to doing that? And what am I going to say, no? Yeah. So they actually pulled me for the rest of the film and they had me work on the montages for the film. The
montage sequence being the dresses like a spider, looks like a bug.
Well, we should all just give him one big hug.
That's one of them. So the man on the street stuff, and the other one was the costume montage. That was the big one.
Oh yeah.
That took the longest.
When he's doing the little symbols, I actually think of that. I don't know if you ever saw the MTV thing with Jack Black. He's like, not gay enough.
Not gay enough yet. Still not gay enough.
Just the right amount.
Just the right amount of gay. That's right.
Sorry, I didn't mean to get sidetracked there. So you were editing the big montage with the car and the $3,000 and all that.
Sam would come in and say, okay, now we're going to have you do the crime solving, the crime caper montage. So he comes in, he swoops down, and and the other one was the man on the street. And there's an interesting story about that. The guy singing, he looks like a spider, dresses like a bug. We should all give him one big hug. Look out, And I decided to stick it at the very end. And Laura Ziskin comes in and she goes, I don't want that in there. Laura, I said, you have to have that in there. You have to. It's iconic to Spider-Man. She goes, all right, fine. So everyone else fought her, and somehow I was able to convince her, which was, I was amazed that she relented so quickly.
In the sequel, there's that moment where Peter's sitting outside and he's Spider-Man. It's like really off-key and stuff.
Ever a Spider-Man.
It must have been good enough in the first one that they're like, let's kind of allude to it again with another classic theme song.
That's exactly what they did. It was so popular that they decided to do another version of that.
Spins a web.
I did all the montages for the first film. I went to the premiere and all that. I didn't realize how successful it would be. It turned out to, blow the box office, dollars out the door for everything else.
Yeah. Little known trivia about the Raimi Spider-Man. He's popular now for having the organic webs shooting out of his body, but a lot of people don't know is that originally there were going to be some mechanical web shooters. Do you know the reason they took it away or what the story behind that is?
No, I know they were going back and forth. In fact, I had the footage to work with for the montage for that.
Where he had the shooters on?
Yes, where he had, and he was actually on the workbench electronically going in and
I've never seen that.
Building them as well. So
I didn't even know that.
They wanted to be more natural, I think. They decided organically it would flow better.
Even today, it's still a running joke. Did you see the No Way Home? with Toby
Yes.
or whatever. They're like, is that stuff coming out of you?
Yeah, they
So there's a guy online. His name is Alex Hunter. His channel is called HiTop Films. Several video essays on the Raimi Spider-Man movies. As if I told him, hey, I might be interviewing one of the editors of the original Spider-Man movie. Do you have any questions? And he had just 2.
But no, so huge fan first of all. And my question is, when cutting that first film, it's so fast-paced in a way, but it's also so sentimental. It knows exactly when to linger on a face, exactly when to cut. Like there's a magical rhythm to it almost. So my question, I guess, is how do you find that rhythm?
In most films, there's an editor's cut, which the editor, while they're still shooting, the editor's actually cutting the film together and the scenes together. And then the director comes in and then there's director's cut. So the director there's a director's cut and then there's the director's cut.
Yeah.
The one that the studio didn't want to do. It's all Sam's magical touch. He's the one that, when he watches the scene, he'll tell you, let's pace that a little bit longer. Let's keep that, stay on this a little bit longer. Pacing goes, he's a master at that too, I think. Sam has a real natural way of cutting a film together that just draws you in.
Also, one more, and this one's easy and predictable, but what's your favorite Sam Raimi story? All right, thank you.
In the first film, under a lot of pressure to get the film done, Sam saw that, and so he came in one day. All the editors were, editing away, and he says, everybody stop. He says, come with me. We walked down to the Kim Novak Theater. He says, I just want to take our mind off things for a second, and get some inspiration here. Then he says, okay, just sit and watch. And he had gotten a copy of Tomb Raider before it even came out.
Oh, cool.
And he showed it to everybody. And so he would do things like that, just get everybody to kind of relax and take your mind off the stress of things.
You had the opportunity to direct and produce the HBO special behind the scenes look, Behind the Ultimate Spin. How did that come out to be?
Someone had done an HBO, actually put together the whole special. The executives saw it and they didn't like it. They hated it, I think. We had to recreate that. We had to deliver it in 3 days. It was my responsibility to create the special from scratch. And we were literally working 3 days straight. That's why I got the title of director, mainly because I created this special within 3 days.
Yeah, wow.
I think I logged 109 hours that week.
Jeez.
I'm something of an editor myself.
I know we're talking a lot about Spider-Man 1 and editing a lot of the montage sequences. Were you involved in Spider-Man 2 and 3? And if you were, to what extent were you involved?
I shifted roles after Spider-Man 1 so they could have a couple extra effect shots. They used my salary for that. They actually needed somebody to do the long lead press reels. Really what it was is a half-hour cut down of the full film. And you have to show it 6 months before the film comes out. So I did that for Spider-Man 2 and Spider-Man 3.
Wow. Were you all editing with digital at the time for like Spider-Man 1? Or
Everybody was transitioning to digital shooting, but he still was a traditionalist. He wanted to stay on film. And that's the other thing. They'd have to basically do the film twice because the negative cutter would have to make an IP and they'd try and, they'd make a copy of the negative.
It's actually just a technical question, not so much Spider-Man specifically, but when you're editing sequences, like the montage when he's doing the suit, because it's kind of paced, almost you want to edit on beat in certain parts or whatever. When Danny Elfman comes in, does he have to stick to the temp track, or do you edit the montage and then he writes his music in accordance to your edit, or how does that work?
I had my own music I use, so every editor comes in usually with their own music. Was going through all my stuff and I said, I'm going to try the OC Supertones. I don't know if you remember them. I had cut the montage to that. Everyone loved it. They started licensing it, getting the license for it, and Danny Elfman caught wind of it.
He goes, no, not on my watch.
I said, I want the whole film to be mine.
Yeah, not on the Elfman watch.
Not on the Elfman watch.
So Danny Elfman worked on Tim Burton's Batman movies as well, and then he worked on Sam Raimi's Spider-Man. Sam Raimi has vocalized, I would love to do a Batman movie.
He never mentioned anything about Batman.
Not really?
No. I mean, his true love is the horror films, of course.
Right. There's a Patreon question. So this is one from Sarion Wessel. I'm sure I butchered that. Was there a lot of anxiety leading up to the premiere, seeing as it was one of the first big superhero movies, as well as the responsibility of treating a top 3 biggest superhero ever?
We were nervous only because of the fact that we were working on such a big film, and we just didn't know how big this film was going to be, but we knew it was huge. You're almost when you're at the end of working on a film, you're so sick of it. I hate to say that. But you really are, because you're watching this over and over, and after a while, you don't even you don't have any reference anymore. It's like, is this make does this
make sense? Is this
film
coherent?
Exactly. I went to the premiere for Spider-Man 1. None of the post-production team wanted to even go to that.
Yeah, we've seen it 8,000 times.
They've seen it so many times.
Here's one I got for you. Wade, who said, what was the biggest challenge editing such a big budget movie with such a masterful comic book movie artist like Sam Raimi?
Geez, it wasn't even really a challenge. Sam makes it so easy because he really encourages everybody.
I hear he's good about like autonomy. Like you even kind of mentioned, do it the best way you think.
He'll let you run with it, and he comes back. The way he works with his editors, he's very encouraging. He says, "Great job, buddy, friend, buddy, friend, buddy," and he has a way of getting the best out of the people he works with.
When I had met him briefly, in a convention setting, he seems like very soft-spoken. In interviews I see of him, he's always kind of very soft-spoken. How is it that somebody like that can succeed?
He is soft-spoken, and I've never seen him yell, ever. Never yelled at anybody, never put anyone down. His kindness, I mean, he's just a kind-hearted guy.
Yeah.
I just remembered the story. I was in Chicago, and we were shooting the back plates for Doc Ock, the L train. It's meant to be the train where they had the fight on.
One of the greatest action sequences in all of comic book history. That one, got it, okay.
Correct. But it was the only time they could block off like 4 city blocks. They have police, the whole thing is cordoned off.
Gosh.
And so we're ready to roll. And where's Sam Raimi? He's nowhere to be found. It's like, where's the director?
Yeah.
They stopped, everything. Take a second, and they have to get this done soon because they got the whole city, half the city blocked off. It's costing $1,000 a second or whatever it is. Somebody said we spotted him 2 blocks down. He's talking to all these film students behind a stanchion, and he's just shooting the breeze with them, signing autographs.
Yeah.
And it's like, Sam, doing a big film here, you might want to mosey on over and call action. That's another kudos to Sam and his this personality. One
of the reasons I really like Sam Raimi is I feel he doesn't come from like the LA elite or anything. He's like a small town in Michigan. He had filmed like 20 or 30 little short films before he even did Evil Dead, and he did a little short of that even prior to show investors. And so there's a sense of like he's one of us. He made it. 2 different people asked a similar question. How connected are you to the character of Spider-Man, or were you at all going in?
I had this many Spider-Man comic books. Again, well, seeing that I was a huge Spider-Man fan to begin with, and you kind of have to hold that down a few notches when when I found out I was going to be assigned the film, I related to the character in the fact that here I am, come from nothing, and all of a sudden, with great power comes great responsibility. All of a sudden, now I'm in charge of putting this whole thing, these scenes together.
There's one scene in the Spider-Man movie. I don't know if you worked on it or if you know the details behind it. It's the scene where Spider-Man saves Mary Jane, and he swings her away, and Mary Jane is very clearly holding on to a Spider-Man mannequin that's not moving and just kind of moving through the air. What's that about?
That's a good question.
The hair is blowing the wrong way as well, but you can very clearly tell that's not a person in that suit. She's reacting to.
I think it was a bad green screen day. Obviously, in the post production, I have nothing to do with that.
Not me.
I'm just asked to fix it. That's all.
He actually gave me his Spider-Man 2 publicist pass from Spider-Man 2. Thank you so much for that as a gift for me before we started rolling. So this is what I had Sam Raimi sign for me. It's a film cell from the first Spider-Man that was available. I had him sign that for me with my name. I was going to see if you'd sign it for me too.
Yeah. I just won't sign over his name. How's that?
That sounds good.
And Sam would draw on his. Did he draw Spidey on yours?
No, but I have seen him do that. He also says he writes "Be Responsible" as well.
In the poster he signed for me, I think he says, "Thanks for the great cutting on Spider-Man." He says, "Spidey was in a jam and you pulled him out."
Oh.
I mean, I thought that was great.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I saved the film.
Are you still editing today?
I am. I've moved from film to television, so I mainly work on TV shows at this point. I've kind of got out of the film side of things since I moved east out this way. And a lot of people from Hollywood are doing this. They kind of withdraw for a long time to raise their families, and I'm one of them. I just kind of withdrew from the whole Hollywood side. side.
So I do have a question. This is too personal. Don't feel free. I can leave it out. I found out that you were a Christian, and has there ever been a moment where you're filming and feel like something conflicts, or you feel like, I don't know if I should be a part of this, or have you ever felt any of that, and how do you kind of respond to it?
Obviously, in working in Hollywood, and I was a Christian, there is not an easy place to work being a Christian. I had to make choices at one point to work on some things or not work on some things that I felt were appropriate and not appropriate. To honor God, I wisely choose what I work on.
Sam Raimi does a lot of horror, Evil Dead, Drag Me to Hell and stuff.
Sam's films are a little more campy, obviously, with, Bruce Campbell in them, and the way that, the humor. It's the same in life. I mean, we make mistakes that are not contrary to maybe scriptural or whatever that we think, later on we regret. We just kind of learn from that and say, well, Lord, I'm not going to do that again.
Yeah.
It's like that was a bad path to go down. And so I think it's the same thing. Although the only difference with us is it's out to the world and out there forever.
Okay, well that's about it. So I appreciate it, Greg. Thank you so much for talking with us, man.
Absolutely, sure thing. It's been a pleasure. Anytime.